After that, basically, David Sanchez, the national leader of the Brown Berets at the time, disbanded the Brown Berets. And that was officially the end of the Brown Berets at that time. A San Diego chapter, a couple chapters in San Diego continued to call themselves Brown Beret and didn't follow the directive of David Sanchez. And that organization was known as the Brown Berets de Aztlán. It's an organization that has existed since then. So it's still been persistent and it still exists today. We can talk about them in a little bit. So after the end of the Brown Berets, it basically, any type of radical organizing like that kind of ceased. You know, the 1980s, Reagan's time and all that, and the drugs and the increased poverty and those kind of things led to a lot of disenfranchisement in our community. And with the fall of groups like the Brown Berets and the Black Panthers, we started seeing the rise of a lot of other negative things. To the point that in 1994, in Watsonville, California, there was a shooting that led to a couple of members in our community dying. And that sparked this sense of commitment in a couple of Brown Berets, Luis Alejo and a couple of other Berets, who restarted the Brown Berets in Watsonville. And their organization, built in 1994, was different than the organization that they took the name from. In many ways, it was the same in its core definition, in its core belief in the idea of self-determination. But it was very much more about an idea of inclusiveness, internationalism, revival of indigenous and spiritual ideas, and a really strong focus on community-based organizing. Their main focus when it comes to that was to fix the community in Watsonville. You know, they were all people from Watsonville that had grown up in Watsonville, that had seen the problems in Watsonville, California. And so they decided that they would focus on Watsonville before they would worry about having to fix the world. And that led them to create what is now called the Watsonville Autonomous Brown Beret chapter. They've been around for a very long time. They're the chapter that helped us start our organization here. Here in Salt Lake City, you know, when we started in 2006, there was a little, well, from my personal experience, you know, having been an activist before the start of the Brown Berets, there wasn't that much when it came to radical organizing and radical politics in the Brown Berets. And when I use the term radical, I use that term very lightly. I feel that that the term radical is a word that is used to put people in a box, right? Which I'll talk about more about that kind of like being able to categorize yourself and talk about it. But I'm using it as a way of like understanding what I mean so that everyone kind of gets what I mean, right? So by radical, I mean politics that are outside the status quo. You know, it's politics that are revolutionary. With this lack of militancy in the community, and with bills like HR 4437, which was a national bill to criminalize all undocumented immigrants, we felt that, especially our two co-founders, Daniel and Marawani, both felt that there needed to be something different, a stronger response from the community and a way of organizing the young people in our community that had an energy to do something. And so on April 9th, that was the official day that the Brown Berets were started in 2006 here in Salt Lake City. And we had, and by we, you know, the people that started it had a very strong connection and dialogue with Watsonville, and learned as much as they could from them and the way that they did things, and took the idea and ran with it, you know. And the Brown Berets became and continues to be kind of like a collection of some of the greatest radicals we find in Salt Lake City. And so with that, we just, since then, we maintained the same kind of focus that the Watsonville Berets talked about and the Berets back in the day talked about, which is self-determination and organizing in our own communities. And it's creating relevant, real, tangible things in the community that people can relate to open up their ears to what we have to say. You know, it's an organization that comes out of the fact that most of us that started the Brown Berets, that are still in the Brown Berets, all come from very lower class, working class, lower working class communities. They saw things that we had already seen in our communities. We knew that the police were oppressive, right? We knew that the system was messed up because we was broke as shit and our parents had always been working. Excuse my language, right? So we took those ideas, those sentiments we had already grown with, and added the theory as we studied and continued to work together and learn things from each other. And that's the theory of the Brown Berets, right? The theory of the Brown Berets is street politics, is street level individuals educating themselves to create a better future in their own communities, to overthrow the system that oppresses us, regardless of what that system might be. And so Watsonville left us with a real broad idea of what we have to do. And they kind of just said, all right, you're autonomous. Do whatever you want, right? This is what we can give you, but we can't tell you how to run things in Salt Lake City. We're in Watsonville, California. And with that idea, at first it's kind of tough, like, oh damn, I got nobody supporting me, I have to do this on my own, you know? But it's a very liberating and empowering idea as well. Because we now had to be the leaders that are lacking in our community. So we started creating individual programs to meet the needs of the community. And the first things that we started to do was to create dialogues between us and the community. Community forums, community surveys, and just have open one-on-one discussion. Because even though we came from the communities and we still live in those same communities, we understand the privilege we have of having gained some sort of liberation knowledge of liberation. So we have to continually work at keeping a solid connection with our community. And like I'm saying, when I speak of community, it's the understanding of the background of Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City isn't divided into black area, brown area, white area, or anything like that. It's really, the west side is whoever's on there. So our community, and my community in Rose Park, where I live in Salt Lake City, is Latinos, Pacific Islanders, and refugees. So that's the communities we work with, right? So in order to fulfill our needs to our community, the Brown Berets naturally have to step away from a nationalist idea, which I'll get more into in a little bit. So with the understanding that Watsonville not only can't tell us what to do, but they shouldn't tell us what to do in Salt Lake City, we started doing that. And we use the theory or the idea of self-determination that Malcolm X spoke about. That's as our main theory of what it is that we want to do, right? So whatever change we want to create, so we want to create a change in the atmosphere of the schools. We believe that the only way we can do that is by engaging the community for its own defense, right? Whether it's from police, or whether it's from employers, or whether it's from gangs, or whatever issue that there is in the community they feel they have to do, the community has to be mobilized to defend its own interest. Only with that kind of awareness can the community then take that next step, that logical step, as it continues to evolve, just like we personally evolve. As the community continuously evolves to the time when they can, as Bobby Seale said, seize the time. And when we seize the time, we'll seize power, you know? And so, to us, it's that idea of self-determination, self-empowerment, community empowerment. That's our road to what we think is revolution. And that's the idea that the Panthers kind of left to us in their last couple of years when the main focus became the free breakfast program. It became the intercommunal schools, which is something that we're also working on, creating schools. And that idea, of course, is that here we talked about is the idea of intercommunalism. And I'm going to kind of just like a broad talk about intercommunalism. Intercommunalism is basically about creating focal community revolution. It's the idea that we can create an independent community inside this outside community, outside of the community that oppresses us. We can find ways of feeding ourselves. We can find ways of educating our children. And once we start doing that, that is a blow to imperialism. And it's those constant blows to imperialism from all different communities, from here, from Watsonville, from Los Angeles, from Chicago, from Nicaragua, from everywhere. Those kind of blows are the ones that will eventually start taking its toll onto capitalism until we can create a more broader national attack. So that's why our focus is on intercommunalism, on direct local politics, relevant politics that the community cares about. And so an example of that, One of the examples of that is a program that we helped start at Kearns called FACE Movement, which is an after-school program. FACE Movement happened after a shooting that occurred in Kearns that we got together with members of the Pacific Islander community and helped start that. To us, FACE Movement is a step towards the creation of educating our own communities, right? And it's a step towards self-determination. The moment that we can start educating our children on what's really true and what's really the reality of the decadent society in this country.